Board members to the dais. I call the June 25th, 2024 DC Ranch Community Facilities District special meeting related to the Facilities District budget to order. District Clerk Ben Lane, please conduct the roll call.
Thank you, Chair Ortega. Chair David Ortega.
Present.
Board members Tammy Caputi,
Here.
Tom Durham,
Here.
Barry Graham,
Here.
Betty Janik,
Here.
Kathy Littlefield,
Here.
and Solange Whitehead.
Here.
City Manager Jim Thompson,
Here.
City Attorney Sherry Scott,
Here.
District Treasurer Sonia Andrews,
Here.
Acting City Auditor Lakeloff,
Here.
and the District Clerk is present. Thank you, Chair Ortega.
Excellent. Next, we have the approval of prior meeting minutes. Are there any revisions? I request a motion to approve meeting minutes of Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Please record your vote. Thank you. We are unanimous. Next, we will move on to the business items before the DC Ranch Community Facilities District Board of Directors. I call on District Treasurer Sonia Andrews to provide a presentation.
Thank you, board members. Next slide. So for items 3, 4, and 5, the district is being asked to adopt the proposed budget for fiscal year 24-25 and also order the tax levy for 24-25. There are 3 options that are presenting to the board. For all 3 options, there will be a debt service levy of $1,291,679. There is also an extra levy this year for the Quagmire versus Maricopa County judgment of $300,905 for a total debt service levy of $1,592,584. What separates the 3 options is the operation and maintenance levy that is shown on the slide. And for administration and paths and trail maintenance, option 1 totals $79,882, option 2 totals $348,042, and option 3 totals $128,746. So the total levy and presented for the board to consider is option 1 for a total levy of $1,672,466, which would generate an estimated property tax rate of 0.3897 for every $100 of assessed value. Option 2 is $1,940,626 for an estimated property tax rate of 0.4522, and option 3 is a levy of $1,721,330 for an estimated property tax rate of 0.4011. Next slide. So the impact to the actual property taxes would be as shown on this slide. The first column is the current year property tax rate of 0.3298, and for a property in the DC Ranch District with a tax assessed value of $1.3 million, the current year property tax for that DC Ranch CFD would be $408. Option 1 would result in a 24% increase, totaling $507. Option 2 would be a 44% increase for $588, and option 3 would generate a 28% increase in the property taxes, which would then total $521. Next slide. So with that, I can answer any questions, and these are the 3 options that we're asking the district board to consider and adopt.
Thank you. I will call on Vice Chair Graham for a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Sherry, please correct me if this doesn't meet your satisfaction.
I move to adopt resolution number 61, option 3, approving the proposed fiscal year 24-25 DC Ranch Community Facilities District budget of $1.721 million. Do I need to continue?
Just to clarify, I think the motion only needs to be adopt Resolution 61, Option 3.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. Thank you. The board is unanimous. Next, we will move on to conduct a public hearing on the district's fiscal year 2024-25 budget. The public hearing is open to individuals who can come forward, and I see two people that wish to speak. One is Jenna Cole. The other one is Ethan Nolden. Ethan has contributed his time to Jenna Cole. So Jenna, you have 4 minutes. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mayor Ortega and members of the council. My name is Jenna Cole. I serve as the executive director for DC Ranch. It's a master plan community of about 8,000 residents in North Scottsdale. Address is 20551 North Pima Road. And I speak tonight regarding the O&M levy related to the DC Ranch CFD. The DC Ranch CFD requires the DC Ranch Community Council and Ranch Association to pay for insurance and utilities and to provide maintenance for the public assets located within DC Ranch, CFD. Those assets include Market Street Park, covered playground, picnic area, splash pad, large wood bridge, and an expansive grass area where we have public concerts, et cetera, and over 450,000 square feet of public paths and trails along with their adjacent landscaping. In a 2023 review of the CFD documents, our attorney informed us that we must submit an annual budget to reflect the true cost of those maintenance duties each year, and our desire was to get it corrected starting in fiscal year 24-25 moving forward. So over 1 year ago, we really did a deep dive and comprehensive analysis of CFD-related expenses, which hadn't been done for over 15 years. In February of this year, we met with Bill Murphy, Gina Kirkland, and the city's CFD attorney to explain the situation. We provided them with a comprehensive cost analysis study showing the actual expenses to maintain the CFD assets, which totaled a little over $330,000. After reviewing the comprehensive study, city officials agreed that all costs were allowable as presented. The increased maintenance portion of the tax amount amounts to about 6 cents, rising from 0.02 to 0.08, well below the 30 cents allowable for the M&O tax. We recognize our obligation to annually evaluate and update the cost of maintenance and acknowledge that this is the first time that we've done so in many, many years. We also understand and acknowledge the impact of the class action lawsuit on the CFD. Thus, we work with the city staff to negotiate a phased approach which would spread next year's cost over 3 years, that $330,000. So it's not the solution we were hoping for, but it is one we are willing to agree to. So we do support option 3, but what I want to emphasize is that in future years, we hope to recapture the full actual cost of those maintenance obligations. So we will be back next year. This is critical funding for maintenance of valuable public assets in DC Ranch, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Cole. So with that, I will close public comment regarding the fiscal year 24-25 budget, and the topic is option 3 and, of course, resolution 61. Next, moving on, we would look at considering resolution number 62. I'll call on Vice Chair Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. I will move to adopt resolution number 62, option 3.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on motion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Thank you. It is unanimous. Now I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Please record your vote. We are adjourned. June 25th, 2024 City Council regular meeting and work session to order. City Clerk Ben Lane, please conduct the roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor David Ortega,
Present.
Vice Mayor Barry Graham,
Present.
Council Members Tammy Caputi,
Here.
Tom Durham,
Here.
Betty Janik,
Here.
Kathy Littlefield,
Here.
and Solange Whitehead.
Here.
City Manager Jim Thompson,
Here.
City Attorney Sherry Scott,
Here.
City Treasurer Sonia Andrews,
Here.
Acting City Auditor Lay Clough,
Here.
and the clerk is present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We have Scottsdale Police Detectives Dustin Patrick and Tyler Neese, as well as firefighter Jake Jones, should anyone need assistance. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll call on Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. It'd be my pleasure. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Well, for my mayor's report, Scottsdale was incorporated on June 25th, 1951. We are 73 years old today. At that time, in 1951, there were less than 2,000 inhabitants, residents here, less than 1% of today's population, and about 1 square mile. Malcolm White was appointed as the first mayor, and Scottsdale adopted the westmost western town, our official motto. We are deeply saddened by the recent loss of Detective Ryan Soe. Detective Ryan Soe was a 9-year veteran of the Scottsdale Police Force. He was also a veteran of the U.S. Navy. Detective Soe was a native of Scottsdale, an active member of our community, an active member in his church. He's survived by his wife, Ashley, and their 3 beautiful girls. You know, words cannot express the loss we feel for this great man. We have a presentation to make right now, and I would hope that we will pause and pray and think of his family at this time.
Every single one of you in here, every single one of you, whether you knew Ryan or not, or you loved Ryan like we did, or he was your life, you are all here for a reason. In this time and in this moment. I love that Pastor Bowman talked about, you might not know why. And that's certainly true, and I think we ask the why all the time. The why for me, I'll tell you, and I hope the why for you, is that you stand witness to Ryan's legacy, and you shoulder the pain and the sorrow that we're all feeling in the most profound way. To my brothers in SAU and Ryan's closest friends who stood on either side of this casket and brought him in here lovingly. When you focused on the moment, you found your mission. You didn't know what that was. Today you do. I think that it's interesting that all of us will look at each other and we think that whether it was for SAU or another reason, or Ryan came into your lives, you think that you picked him. You didn't pick him. He picked you.
We are all someone who represents meaning to Ryan. And we are gathered here today with a unified purpose, to memorialize the Ryan Young So we know and bid his farewell today. That's Ryan Young So. Young is his Korean name and literally means hero. We accept that Ryan Young So, Scottsdale's native son, has completed his circle of life, Alpha and Omega. Born of Scottsdale Osborne Hospital, departed to heaven from Scottsdale Osborne Hospital.
This is the last call for Detective Ryan So, badge number 1473. Detective So has served the Scottsdale Police Department with honor, dedication, and an unwavering commitment. Detective Ryan So, you have reached the end of watch. Your service and sacrifice will never be forgotten. You have served your community with pride and distinction, and your dedication has made a lasting impact on all who have the honor of working with you. Detective Ryan So, rest in peace. We'll take it from here. All units, Detective Ryan So is 10-7 at 6500 East Bell Road. End of watch, June 13th, 2024. Gone, but never forgotten. It is clear.
Every single one of you in here.
God bless his family, and his memory will always be in our hearts. Next, we will have a presentation of the Arizona Water Association Awards. The presenter is Kevin Rose, Water Resource Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council, for the opportunity to present recognition Scottsdale Water staff recently received from the AZ Water Association Awards at the annual conference. This annual conference was held in May. It's attended statewide by municipalities, private water companies, contractors, and engineering firms, and we were recognized in 3 different areas: Team Award, Individual Award, and Safety Awards. And I'll go ahead and present the awards that we received. The first award is for the Large Water Distribution System of the Year. This award was given to our water distribution team for proactive maintenance programs such as hydrant maintenance, valve maintenance, and also the outreach program that they do on a daily basis, engaging our customers. These are also the employees that maintain and also deliver the water trailer that you may see at city events such as canal convergence. One thing I do want to point out with this staff is their dedication. These are the people that respond 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, even in the middle of summer with the dead of heat, to ensure that our residents and customers have their water. The next award is an individual award, and it's for Small Treatment Plant Supervisor of the Year. This award was given to Scott Pyros for his dedication not only to his plant, but also to his operators. Scott was recognized for optimizing mixing zones for nitrate improvement, also implementing a process where his operators assist the maintenance techs with light-duty maintenance whenever there's staffing issues. Scott was also recognized for his continual efforts in energy and chemical efficiencies which aren't easy tasks either at a water plant or a wastewater plant, as Scott oversees at the Gainey Water Reclamation Facility. We were also recognized in 13 different areas for our safety program. So this entailed water treatment, wastewater treatment, our electrical maintenance, our mechanical maintenance, and really proud of our safety culture that we were recognized for the individuals who have committed to 0 lost hours at these facilities. And finally, while we were there, we continued our advanced purified recycled water engagement, which is engaged in the conversation. So we are known for bringing water to the conference and also on tours so people can taste the water that was once in the sewer system that we've treated to drinking water. We have given this water to breweries to brew their beers. Now we are in collaboration with ASU, and my understanding you guys have received some of the popsicles that were earlier today. So we are assisting in popsicles, again, to start the conversation of the advantages of advanced purified recycled water. And with that, that's all I had. Don't know if you want a picture, Mayor. We do have staff available.
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. So staff.
They also produce popsicles. They were delicious. Next item is just on advice that during tonight's meeting, the council may make a motion to recess into executive session to obtain legal advice on any applicable item which is on the agenda. If authorized by the council, the executive session would be held immediately and will not be open to the public. The public meeting would then resume following an executive session. Also, per our council rules of procedure, citizens attending city council meetings shall observe the same rules of order and decorum applicable to members of the council and city staff ourselves. Unauthorized remarks or demonstrations from the audience would just delay the meeting, and we would, if there was a violation of those rules, it could result in removal from the meeting by security staff. Additionally, the council recently updated its council rules. Council members shall not send any electronic communications while attending public meetings or executive sessions. Only electronic devices supplied by the city and approved for use during council meetings may be used during council sessions. For non-communicative purposes such as referencing meeting materials. All other electronic devices must be stored elsewhere. Next, we will go to public comment. Public comment, this is really thrilling, each of these. Public comment is reserved for Scottsdale citizens, businesses, business owners, and or property owners to comment on non-agendized items that are within the council's jurisdiction. Advocacy for or against a candidate or ballot measure during council meeting is not allowed pursuant to state law and therefore not deemed to be within the council's jurisdiction. No official council action can be taken on these items, and speakers would be limited to 3 minutes. So if you do wish to speak, of course, on a non-agendized item, you would have checked with our clerk. And we have one request by Ali Koftal. Thank you for being here, and he's a frequent communicator, as you know, and we have your address on file, but you have 3 minutes, sir.
All right.
Okay, Lee Koftile, address on file. I just wanted to come up real quick. I, saw this online, like, spending time online, and it really made me think about what this city is about and things to keep in mind when we are talking about transportation and development and the city services and making sure they all stay at a high quality. So when I was looking at the budget, I saw this slide here, and what struck me on it is the majority of our budget goes to public safety, police and fire, and so when we talk about taxes and cutting taxes and things like that, the largest slice of the pie is public safety for us, and any talk about cutting the rest of it, it's just nibbling around the edges, and so we really need to think about the best way to continue to make city services what they are, keep them great. I think I've heard you say excellent service simply delivered, which I think Scottsdale lives up to, as we just saw with our water department and the awards and recognitions they got there. They managed to do it with a small slice of the pie. And so looking at our funds and what we are doing with our transportation and the tourism and the special revenue funds, again, with such a big budget that this city has, I understand it's over 5 years, but this is what we do for transportation, what we do with this small amount of money for transportation is amazing. You know when you leave Scottsdale, because as soon as you drive into Mesa or Tempe or Phoenix, you hit a pothole that you don't hit, that you almost never hit when you're driving around our city here. And so I just, again, wanted to go back to this where, I want to have stable services in the city. As we've seen over and over again, we are one of the lowest tax cities in the Phoenix metro area, which is great. And density is something that comes up a lot here. And the way I look at housing is I think we need natural growth, which is, duplexes and quadplexes instead of these giant apartment buildings. And I think the ADUs and the other options we have are really good at allowing us to grow naturally rather than having that explosion of the giant places every once in a while in order to make this city have low taxes, have stable services, and have the right side density that we have here. So thank you for all you're doing, and I keep that in mind, so thank you.
Thank you, Lee. So therefore, I will now close public comment. Next, we have approval of minutes. I request a motion to approve the special meeting minutes of May 14th, 2024, the regular meeting and work study session minutes of May 14th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you. We have a motion and a second. Please record your vote. Oh, did you wish to speak, Ms.? Oh, okay.
No, Mayor, I was registering my vote.
Okay, good. Okay, we are unanimous. Thank you very much. Next, we have consent agenda items 1 through 24. All of these items are logged in with a complete file and are posted in our agenda. There's also an opportunity for the public to speak on consent agenda items. If any council member has a question, the staff could answer that. I do want to point out there's no request to speak from the public for consent agenda items 1 through 24. Therefore, I will close public comment on consent agenda items. I see Councilwoman Whitehead.
Mayor, I motion to adopt consent agenda items 1 through 24.
Second.
I hear that as approve, so we will approve those items. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Thank you. You know, there were several highlights in the consent agenda items that I want to say that add to the stability and the quality of life that we have here in Scottsdale. Specifically, we renewed a contract with Experience Scottsdale with a complete marketing plan. We also had a representative from the Museum of the West, which has been growing in attendance and offer, and of course the Scottsdale Arts Group. Item number 20 was the Scottsdale Promise Funding Agreement, and that is a consortium of including the community college and other school district entities who've joined with the city and believe that getting people to the next level of education and sponsored by the city of Scottsdale will be helpful, and they'll remember us as they enter careers here in Scottsdale. So that's important. With that, I will then move on to our regular agenda items. First, we have item number 25, the fiscal year 2024-25 property tax levies. Sonia Andrews, our city treasurer, will make the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Next slide. So the property tax adoption process is required by state law. It's a two-step process. On June 4th, we presented a much more detailed presentation on the proposed property tax levy and rate, and we also held a public hearing. So tonight, we are just looking for the adoption of the property tax levies. Next slide. So the property tax levies for fiscal year 24-25 are $39.64 million for the primary levy and $34.84 million for the secondary levy, for a total of $74.48 million and a combined tax rate of 0.9316 per $100 of tax assessed value. Next slide. The property tax rate is a decrease of 5.1% from the current property tax rate of 0.9814. Next slide. And this slide shows what the actual property tax paid by a property with a median property value in Scottsdale for a residential property would be. So the first column of numbers is the current year property taxes that a property with a median limited property value would pay, and the second column shows that the median property value, most of our properties increased by 5%, but because our property tax rate is going down by 5.1%, the net effect is that the city's portion of the property taxes would go down by minus 0.3%. So for this median property, a $371.64 property taxes would go down to $370.42. Next slide. And at the 0.9316 property tax rate that's proposed for fiscal year 24-25, the city of Scottsdale remain as one of the lowest property tax rate in comparison to our peer cities in the valley. Next slide. So we're asking council to adopt the ordinance number 4640, assessing the 24-25 primary and secondary property tax levies and fixing the corresponding tax rates.
Thank you. At this point, I would open public comment. Seeing none, then I would close public comment on the FY 2024-25 property tax levies. I see Councilwoman Janik wishes to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Very nice presentation. Thank you for all that information, Sonia. I think we need to be very proud that we continue to provide first-class service for a first-class community, and yet we are lowering the tax rate. So I think that's a very big accomplishment for us. And with that in mind, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 4640, assessing the fiscal year 24-25 primary and secondary property tax levies and fixing the primary and secondary property tax rates.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. No one wishing to speak. Please record your vote. Thank you. We are unanimous. Moving on, we will go to item number 26, the fiscal year 2024-25 Streetlight Improvement District Property Tax Levy. And we have Anna Henthorn, the Accounting Director. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. This action is to review the fiscal year 24-25 Municipal Streetlight Improvement District Property Tax Levy. This is a two-step property tax adoption. We had the public hearing on June 4th, and tonight is the adoption of the property tax levies. This is a map of the streetlight districts. The blue represents the APS service provider, and the green represents SRP. The fiscal year 24-25 tax levy is $603,124, with an average levy per property lot of $17.75. The action item is to adopt Ordinance 4641, assessing the fiscal year streetlight improvement property tax levy by district in accordance with the Arizona Revised Statute and City Charter. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. At this point, I will open public testimony on the item, which is the 2024-25 Streetlight Improvement District Property Levy. I'm told there are no requests. Therefore, I will close public comment. This time, I'm open to a motion. I see Councilwoman Whitehead.
Mayor, I motion to adopt ordinance number 4641, assessing the FY 24-25 Streetlight Improvement District Property Tax Levy by district in accordance with Arizona Revised Statutes and City Charter.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please record your vote. Great. This time, we will move on to public comment. Public comment is a second opportunity for someone to come forward on any non-agendized item. I'm told there's no request from the public to speak. Therefore, public comment is closed. Next item has to do with the citizen petitions. According to our charter, citizens can bring forth a petition registered at the clerk's office, and it would be read here. However, there was none submitted, therefore that item is closed. We have not received any citizen petition at this meeting. Moving on to the mayor and council item, I show that as what we do is a two-part process for nominations and appointments to boards and commission. I will turn the meeting over to Vice Mayor Graham, who will be chairing the nominating portion of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The Scottsdale City Council is responsible for establishing city policies and enacting laws in support of those policies. The council relies on volunteer, citizen-based boards and commissions to research issues and make recommendations in support of the council's mission and goals. The information and recommendations provided by council-appointed advisory boards is a valuable tool in helping council members in their deliberations. This evening, the City Council will be nominating Scottsdale residents interested in serving on the Development Review Board. Appointment to the vacant position on the Development Review Board will be made at a special City Council meeting on July 2nd, next week. As we begin our process this evening, I'd like to remind my colleagues that an applicant only needs to receive one nomination in order to advance to the interview before the council. When I call on you, if your chosen applicant has already been nominated by a council member, please state none additional and we'll move on in the process. Thank you. Now let us get started. The purpose of the Development Review Board, I will call it DRB going forward, is to review and approve the architectural design and layout of proposed development plans. As outlined in the Scottsdale City Code, the membership shall consist of a city council member, a planning commissioner, and 5 public members. Michael Ann Joyner's term ended in May, and she was appointed to the city's planning commission. There is 1 opening and 13 applicants. The applicants are as follows: Julie Berry, Danielle Davis, Paul Ejoops, Brad Feinberg, Michael Knapp, Larry Cush, Donna Robinson, Paul Cervantes, Brian Silverstein, Robert Stickles, Stephen Sussoltz, Brooke Taff, Michael Willis. And I will now entertain nominations for DRB. Each council member may nominate 1 applicant, and I will start with my extreme left, your extreme right, Councilmember Caputi.
I think we've done way too good of a job of encouraging qualified candidates. I'm going to nominate Danielle Davis, please.
Donna Robinson.
Stephen Susholtz.
No additional.
No additional.
I nominate Julie Berry.
Thank you, and I have none additional. Rommel, do you need me to read the names? Are you good?
Vice Mayor, I can read them if you like. We have Julie Berry, Danielle Davis, Paul Cervantes, and Stephen Sussoltz as the nominees.
Very good. This concludes our nomination process this evening. Individuals nominated will be contacted by city staff with additional information. I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank all those who applied to serve on this Citizen Advisory Board. Even if you weren't nominated, your application will remain on file for 1 year for consideration at a future date if there are additional vacancies. Thank you so much, and I will now turn the meeting back to the mayor.
Thank you. Next, we will have a work-study session. Work-study sessions provide a less formal setting for the mayor and council to discuss specific topics with each other and city staff, and a chance to provide direction. For this work study, we allow 5 speakers and acknowledge them up front so that they could come forward to speak on the topics. I'm told there are no requests to speak from the public. Therefore, I will close public comment on work study items. Specifically, it's about water. They're both about water, pertaining to the essential reliability that we expect every day. We have water resources and Colorado River update. The presenter is Gretchen Baumgartner, our water policy manager, and then we will have our strategic plan. Great to see you, Gretchen.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As the Mayor said, my name is Gretchen Baumgartner. I'm the Water Policy Manager here for the City of Scottsdale. I come every couple times a year to update you and the rest of the public about Colorado River updates and what's happening with the shortage. So tonight, what we're going to briefly talk about is what's the current conditions, but the more important aspect of tonight is going to be talking about what the current guidelines are, their expiration, and the process to build new guidelines, and then what the Lower Basin State's application or alternative to those guidelines and that implication for that particular alternative is. So just briefly, the system's contents are about 43% full. So if you take all the reservoirs on the figure on the right, you can see the Lake Powell and Lake Mead are the biggest reservoirs in the system. There's a couple of smaller reservoirs up in Colorado. So collectively, there's about 43% full. Even with last year's winter, they're still collectively lower than 50%. And we've left water in the lake, as I will talk about further in this presentation. The 43% becomes a little bit more apparent as I talk about what the lower basin alternative is. So let's talk about the system in general. This graphic is the levels of Lake Mead since the inception, since we built Hoover Dam. It began to fill, and then we built Glen Canyon Dam. And conjectively, they started to fill, and it started to look good. And in around 2000, the system was full. Lake Mead was actually just about spilling. And then what we're calling the drought hit. So the last 22 plus years, we've had this cycle of what we've been calling drought. So we're not getting the supply that we've had in the last century. What we're acknowledging now is not only is it a drought cycle, but we're seeing signs of what's called aridification. So even when we get really great winters, 100% of snowpack, a little bit more than 100% of snowpack, it doesn't translate into supply. It doesn't translate into stream flow, rivers that go into those reservoirs. The differential between snowpack and what we're actually seeing as a supply, the gulf is widened. So the concern is the aridification of the soil is something that we'll probably be having in the future. It's something that the supply we have to take a look at. The future is going to be different than the past. And then what we also see in the system is a structural deficit. Back in 1922, when the compact was made, they looked at historical data, and they allocated the system at 16.5 million acre feet. The system has not given 16.5 million acre feet last century, and not in that 22 years, and we'll talk about in a second. So those three legs of that stool mean that the system is just not giving us the water that we've allocated to the 7 basin states and Mexico. One of the points that I'd like to point out is, so this is the allocation that the lower basin states have taken over the last several years. So the lower basin states, California, Nevada, and Arizona, were allocated 7.5 million acre feet. We haven't taken that over the last several years. 2023, last year, we took 5.8 million acre feet. So even though the system, and we're in a tier 1 shortage right now, even though we had a great winter, we still haven't taken that much. We're still at 43% of the system content. So the conversation around is, how do we build the system better as we walk through the future, and how do we build our city and our state better as we walk through the future? When we talk about the governance of the system, back in 1922 when the system was set up, 7.5 million acre feet for the upper basin, 7.5 million acre feet for the lower basin, there wasn't a strategy or governance system to set up what shortage is. So that's what the 2007 interim guidelines did. It set up what the triggers are and how much they are. Now, they're interim guidelines, which means they're set to expire in 2026. We also did the 2019 drought contingency plan because back in 2016, we realized the guidelines weren't enough. We needed to do more. We did a 500 plus plan because, again, we needed to do more. And currently, we're doing system conservation. The federal government has paid some of us, including Scottsdale and other entities inside Arizona and California and tribes, to leave water behind. It gives us time to have conversations with each other, hard conversations about how to work together into the future to figure out what the next set of guidelines and governance could be. So to kind of paint the picture between the past and the present, this is a figure of what the system has given. So over the last century, when the powers that be and leadership got together and negotiated the guidelines currently, the system gave 14.9 million acre feet. So that was the starting point of the negotiations. Over the last 22 plus years, the system has given 12.5 million acre feet. That is a 16% differential. I'm also going to remind you that there's a structural deficit on the system on top of this. So this is where the system is as we start to negotiate what the next set of guidelines look like, what our future could look like, which means the shortages are going to be deeper. So what does right now look like and the negotiation process look like? It's a multi-year process that the federal government is going through with several stakeholders, all 7 basin states and Mexico. So they started that in fall of 2024. Right now they're going through the environmental impact statement, which includes a NEPA process. So they will review a bunch of alternatives. That includes stakeholder alternatives. So the lower basin states got together and presented an alternative. The upper basin did as well, and some NGOs as well. So they're going to evaluate those and present the draft EIS for all of us to review fairly soon. And then they'll have a negotiation conversation as we get closer to 2026. It will not be an easy conversation for the 7 basin states. So tonight I want to talk about the lower basin alternative. California, Nevada, and Arizona got together, hard conversations, and they had a consensus plan that they presented to the federal government. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So although this is not something that we necessarily know we're going to be given, there's some quantitativeness to it so we can talk about and figure out how we plan for Scottsdale and Arizona in the future. So this is one potential of what we could be looking at. What the Lower Basin states did was look at the wide swath of hydrology that the Bureau of Reclamation put out, many different hydrology futures. Many of them were dry, and so to look at and find out exactly what that could look like for the reservoir system. They also addressed the structural deficit, and we're sharing risks and benefits for this new plan amongst the Lower Basin and Upper Basin state. So this slide is basically a summary of the Lower Basin presentation. So instead of levels of Lake Mead which trigger shortage, they looked at system content to trigger shortages in the Lower Basin state and all the basin states. So if you take all of the big reservoirs, Lake Powell, Lake Mead, some smaller reservoirs up in Colorado, and 2 smaller reservoirs down in Arizona, you get almost 60 million acre feet. So the colorful graphic on the right is going to showcase, depending on what the system content will give you, is what portion of reduction you're in. Instead of level of Lake Mead, it's a portion of reduction you're in. So between 100% and 69% reduction, you don't get any reduction if that's the system content. It means the system's relatively healthy. Between 69 and 58, what's called the on-ramp, so it kind of ratchets down for shortages. Now this system was developed to build more stability in the system to understand, so we can build stability and certainty in the system. So the idea is to actually float in the static reduction zone, which is that middle zone. The idea is to be there more often in the other zones because the lower zones are scary zones. So between 58 and 38% content is when we would be in that zone. As one reminder, this is a horizontal line. If we started this right now, day one, we would be in the lower portion of the static zone, which is not surprising because we've had some really rough years behind us. Even with the last winter, the system content isn't at a point that it's healthy enough. So right now, if we started, we'd be in the low static zone. But the point is the static zone would more stabilize the system and give us some certainty. Now I wanted to present from the drought management plan that was approved a couple of years ago. It was developed to kind of run along the guidelines, the current guidelines, Tier 1, 2, 2A, 3. In it, we approximated how much shortage or cuts Scottsdale would get with every single tier in the current governance system. I put a red circle around what we can probably look like into the future of what maybe our potential shortage can be. So a Tier 3 is about an 18% cut, and below that is around a 33% cut. So let's just look at one potential hydrology that the Lower Basin states looked at. This is just a middle of the ground hydrology. So this is a CMEG-5 future hydrology through the general circulation models that scientists have. And so each one of those bar graphs showcases what percentage of time you would be in those reduction zones. You can see that middle bar graph, which is kind of a turquoise color. That's the static reduction zone. So in this future hydrology, we would be in this zone 42% of the time, which is how this alternative was designed. Now, what does that mean to Scottsdale? So you can see that's a 20,000 acre foot cut or 18 MGD. So that's about 25% reduction for us, which is something we can manage. Brian will talk further after my presentation about the strategic plan and how we're planning for that. One of the other things that Scottsdale and the rest of the Arizona cities that get Colorado water also have to do is be mindful of that green area. 18% of the time, we can look at even deeper cuts, which is a lot of water, which is one of the reasons why we need to be good partners to our sister cities around us and the state around us to really understand how we move water differently to share in the years that that's potential. We're gonna have to move water differently between us and other cities, share the risks, build infrastructure to make us more resilient. What this graph showcased is the future's gonna look different, and we just have to be mindful of conservation. Efficiency is really important, but also infrastructure and how we can build a better Arizona and a better Scottsdale. Now, of course, we do that in part in conservation. Every drop needs to be used as efficiently as possible. I've come here several times over the last couple of years and talk about our conservation program. Our conservation program is decades old. We have a great conservation program, and over the last 4 years, we've built it even better. But that doesn't mean we have to stop. We're gonna build it even better as we come through the next decade. We're gonna increase our conservation messaging so everybody understands that they're a partner in this. We're expanding our AMI network, which means it gives a more finer, granular look at how people use water. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. If you can show people how they use water on an hourly basis, they can be their own water stewards, both commercial customers and residential customers. We're working with our HOAs. Our HOA program has increased by 400%. It's almost hard to keep up with it. We've had some really great HOAs that are really interested in finding ways to understand their water usage. And we're working with commercial customers to really hone in on their business, how they save water, and really how they can be more efficient. And we have the Sustainable Water Management Principles, Chapter 4. For those larger water users, we require them to have a conversation with us. Some of them need to bring water. All of them need to have a bigger conservation ethic, and we have really great conversations that go above and beyond code. And the last thing will be infrastructure. Moving water and infrastructure investment will be important for Scottsdale and all Arizona cities. It'll be really important to understand how we move water differently. And that is my presentation.
Let me lead off, Gretchen. Just, our council has quarterly financial reports. We also get a readout monthly, but that's very useful. And I believe we should have quarterly water reports, such as this briefing. And can you also just explain how the water year works? Because we are seasonal we're finishing June, then we have a September report out, I think, from Watershed, and then we go to, so could you?
The water year actually follows the federal fiscal year.
Okay.
So October to September is how you measure a water year, which is basically the hydrologic system. So you have to be mindful when you talk about calendar year, fiscal year, water year, whose fiscal year. So the water year follows basically the runoff year.
So that's also how the reporting is useful for us, because by reporting quarterly and then corresponding really to the seasonality of the watershed. Councilwoman Janik and then Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Gretchen. Very interesting report. I have a couple questions. You said the new model is system content, which would be water throughout the state in various types of bodies of water.
So it would be the reservoir systems across the basin states. So the vast majority are going to be in Powell and Meade, but several up in Colorado and then 2 along the river of Arizona.
Is it realistic that we can actually tap into all those reservoirs? Or is this, again, a stretch to make the water situation look better than it actually is?
It'll be a way for the federal government to more conjunctively manage the system instead of separate them between Powell and Meade.
Okay, so by combining everything, we'll get a better portfolio, a better picture of the water availability, and
the lower basin states believe it'll stabilize the outlook and be able to have a little more certainty with the system.
Okay, all right. I just heard about an ASU model. Was on TV on the news lately, and it talked about they had a computer simulated model where they were able to clear the forest floors so that the water yield was greatly enhanced. Are you at all familiar with that? Is it on the horizon? Is it something that we can look forward to?
So I'm not I didn't watch that news report.
Okay.
But absolutely. So we have 2 forest funds that we as the city actually put into. So there's the Northern Arizona Forest Fund, which we've put into for a number of years. And then we have the most recent SRP Biomass Forest Fund too, as well, and that's a 10-year agreement. So with these partnerships with the NFF, National Forest Foundation, and SRP, we are a partner in making the forest health. And yes, I did my master's degree in portions of the forest up north. If you thin the forest appropriately, it does yield more water.
Okay. Do you feel that we're making adequate progress towards that goal, or is it kind of pushed back a little bit?
It's a heavy lift. It really is a heavy lift. But in partnership with SRP, SRP is a big partner and really drives it along with several NGOs. So they are driving it as fast as they can. There is also, with that, the concern of wildfire. So wildfire affects our water supply as well as our water quality content. And so one of the reasons why we're we're a partner. Those are things that are all on our radar, and we should all be partners in. But yes, that is on our radar.
Okay, and they also said additionally, when they did a study, by the proper placement of the trees and by the proper clearing of the forest floor, that we had less heat. So it's threefold then.
Yep,
It's
keeping
water,
our
it's
forest
fire,
outside of us
it's
healthy
heat.
keeps us healthy.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, Vice Mayor Graham?
Thank you, Mayor. Gretchen, great presentation. I know you said it in your presentation, but how wet of a winter was 2024?
2024 was,
Okay, I'm sorry. I know we're talking about the calendar year. Yeah.
so I'm doing the mayor's math about the water year. So it ended, I believe, about 160% of the 30-year average.
Very good. And how do you measure a year? Is it really just, for Colorado, is it just the snowpack in the Rockies?
Oh, that's a complicated question.
Okay. We don't have to go into that, but is that the majority of it? I guess what I'm asking is, are there any leading indicators at this point in the summer for how the next year, meteorologically, is there anything, or we just wait and see?
There are, but they're challenging, just like the weather,
Okay,
right? How do
yeah.
you
No,
how do
I
you
know.
take into consideration La Nina or El Nino?
Yeah.
The soil water content the previous year also will affect the next year's snowpack. So if it was wet the previous year, it doesn't necessarily suck up all that water. So the previous year packs this year too as well.
Yeah, we definitely need to, optimistic about last year, but we have to guard our optimism, right?
We have to be cautiously optimistic.
We have to be cautiously optimistic. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Gretchen.
Thank you.
Hey, Councilwoman Caputi.
Just really quick, the slide with the graph on it that went down to, yeah. So 2% of the time we're at 100% reduction. That means reduction of Colorado River water. And so we are gratefully being able to use the different parts of our water portfolio. It's that we don't have access to the river water. That's why, again, the next presentation, I imagine we're going to talk about, we have
absolutely
other resources that we're able to utilize.
Absolutely, with every single one of these scenarios, you are 100% correct. We have to move water differently, which means pulling the groundwater the water we put in our ground up near the campus, calling on that. That means using Bartlett Dam water once that gets built, because we are a partner in that. That means the Tucson exchange that we did last year. It means utilizing that. It also means having exchanges and potential partnerships with other valley cities and able to move water differently to manage those times. Mm-hmm.
And the recycled popsicles.
And the recycled popsicles are important.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good. Councilwoman Whitehead?
Thank you, Gretchen. I know I asked this and I got the answer. The ADQ reviewing the use of recycled water as part of our portfolio, what's the time frame there, and does that have any, should I wait for Mr. Biesmeyer?
I'm going to let Mr. Biesmeyer answer that when he comes
I'll
up here.
just
Yep.
wrap it up. Thank you for the
Yes,
presentation.
absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So we will go on to part two. I will point out that council passed consent agenda items 2 and 3, which have to do with providing right-of-way for APS to get to our well sites. And we're optimizing the Princess Drive excavations that are happening now. So that means when we drill a site, we also have to provide power to it, whether we're injecting water or extracting water. And that's always on. It seems like we always have something on the agenda for infrastructure. Okay, Brian Biesmeyer, Water Sources Executive Director, is going to talk about the Water Strategic Plan 2025-30.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're going to go into our strategic plan. First, I want to talk about some research that we did in relationship to drought and our consumers, our customers, our citizens' knowledge and their views. And then I'm going to talk about effective utility management, which is the process we use to set up our strategic plan. And then we're going to talk about the strategic plan and the infrastructure proposals in it. So that's how we're going to go, and I'm going to call Stacy Charles, our water PIO, up here and to give a discussion about the EMC research that we've conducted.
Thank you, Brian. So, good evening. I'm the Public Information Officer for Scottsdale Water. Appreciate you having me. We conducted a community water survey in late 2023, and so I want to go over kind of the preface of the results of that. But really what we were trying to figure out is determine a baseline for where we are with our residents, where we are with our customers, to understand resident perceptions, to understand where their thoughts are along the lines with water, drought, water sustainability, et cetera, and then identify opportunities where we can engage more with our residents, where we can inform them better, and where we can help this process of drought along the way. So this, this first slide is really the perceptions of Scottsdale Water, and it came down to that really the residents were asked to rate the city's water department, and Scottsdale was rated positively on the essential functions of providing water services and clean drinking water, but they were given a little bit lower markings for informing on programs and initiatives. Just to talk about that a little bit, so typically residents see the essentials of water and electric as, I turn on the tap, flip the switch, and it's there. Typically, too, or historically, utilities do not talk about the process a lot, talk about how they do things, and so we're quiet, if you will. And so I think in the process, one of the things that Scottsdale's been working on for the last decade has been really how do we change that trend of not talking about what we're doing, not talking about the process a little bit more to help residents understand what our process is, how do we get to this high quality water that we provide, and what are we doing, to make sure that we protect our water supply. So in addition to billing statements, as many of you know, we offer the renowned Water Academy. We have the popular water trailer that's at most of our events. We do the online and printed Scottsdale update. We have the Canal Convergence One Water Beer Showcase. And when our teams are in the neighborhoods maintaining our infrastructure, they are very engaged with the residents to make sure they inform them of what they're doing, that we're in quickly, we're in and out quickly, and we are asked frequently, how long is this going to take? And then when they're out, they're like, oh, that was it. So they work, as you saw today, they work very hard, and they were recognized for it. We're happy about that. We are also asked often for our curriculum for our Water Academy. How do you do it? It's very popular. We have a waiting list. It's hard to get into. And so people ask us, other utilities ask us about that, as well as how did we actually manufacture the water trailer. Many are very interested in that. We've gotten lots of calls lately about that. So there is definitely more to do along the lines of communication and informing our residents, and there's certainly a plan to do that. So under drought awareness, when asked if they had heard or seen anything about drought in Arizona and in the Colorado River Basin, most Scottsdale residents said they were aware of the drought and understand that the water supply situation is serious, and that is 85%. It's pretty high. When we provided two statements asking if the lack of adequate water supplies is a real threat or is it overblown, 2/3 of Scottsdale residents believe that the water shortages are a real threat to their way of life, and only around 1/3 believe that the water shortage is overblown. We then asked, how much, if anything, have you heard or seen recently about recycled water or water reuse? Have you heard a lot, a little, not much, or nothing at all? Just under 4 in 10, or approximately 40% of Scottsdale residents, have heard some or a lot regarding recycled water or water reuse. Among those who have heard, over a quarter recall hearing something non-specific about recycling or reuse efforts. Then we went on to ask them, based on what you know today, would you say you support or oppose adding advanced purified recycled water directly to Scottsdale drinking water supply? A majority of Scottsdale residents support adding advanced purified recycled water to Scottsdale's drinking water supply at 62% with this first question. We then went on to ask them if we added, so adding a little bit more definition. So adding advanced purified recycled water directly to the drinking water supply means taking wastewater from homes and businesses, treating and purifying it with advanced technology to the highest standards, and then sending it directly to homes and businesses for all purposes, including drinking. What was their support at that point in time? The support dropped a bit, as you'll see here, from 62 to 55%. And then we went on to provide additional information as to the hows and whys of advanced purified recycled water, as I will discuss in the next slide, and the support for advanced purified recycled water increased to over two-thirds on safety in need to almost 70%. The topics covered when we gave them additional information focused on drought, awareness of drought, water sustainability, our state-of-the-art process, exceeding federal drinking water regulations, the technology that we've been using to replenish our local aquifers, and how local breweries prefer advanced purified recycled water over tap water. So again, after we've asked them these questions, then we asked them that question again, and then we got that up to 70%. So under conservation attitudes, we made two statements. Most residents, and the two statements are, I am concerned about Scottsdale having enough water for the future, and we must make investments in water quality, reliability, and infrastructure, even if it means we have to pay a little bit more for our water. Most residents concerned about having enough water for the future, that was 82%, and agree it's worth to pay more for water to invest in reliability and quality at 81%. So to conclude, most residents feel Scottsdale Water is doing a good job at the core responsibilities. Awareness of Scottsdale Water and our programs needs improvement. Scottsdale residents understand the gravity of the region's water supply situation and are aware that actions need to be taken to ensure there's enough water for future demands. And then just to reiterate, a strong majority of Scottsdale residents are concerned about having enough water in the future at 82%, which is a pretty significant amount. Support for the use of advanced purified recycled water is strong, and strong majority of Scottsdale residents acknowledge the need to make investments in water quality, reliability, and infrastructure, again at 81%. So I'm going to give this back to Brian. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stacy. And now I will, let me see if I can get this. Oh, there we go. Our strategic plan. So we addressed our strategic plan as we did 5 years ago, and there's a strategic plan is posted. Our current one is posted online using, I'll get it right here, effective utility management. This is a process designed specific for water utilities. It's a continuous improvement process that looks at a self-assessment, some strategic planning, implementation, measurement, and reflection and adjustment. So we use effective utility management, or EUM, both for two purposes. One, we do it annually to look at how we can improve each year. And we put teams together to see how we can make improvements every single year. But then we also look at, for the longer term, for the strategic plan, which I'm sure I'm going to fumble off on a number of times if I say it enough. We do it for our strategic plan, and we use those same principles. We use the keys to management success and then the attributes of an effective utility. And you can see this is just another means of showing how the process works. You can see at the bottom of this slide the number of agencies that put this together and work to put this together. In the memo that I gave as part of this presentation, and as you can see online before the PowerPoint, I referred to the site that's actually on the EPA website. If you dig further in that, you will see Scottsdale is actually written up in 2018 for our use of EUM and being a pioneer with effective utility management. As we looked at our strategic plan through the lenses of effective utility management, we want to make sure we stay in line with our vision and our mission. Our vision is water sustainability through stewardship, innovation, and people, and our mission is to provide simply better, sustainable water services for a world-class community. We want to concentrate on those as we look to the future. We also want to be considerate of our city values, which are the city values. And then we looked at our water standards. We want to be a utility that has world-class standards, and we use the 10 attributes of effective utility management to align these standards. So I'll go through these relatively quickly, but I can certainly answer more. So we want to meet and exceed all water quality standards, and we proof that every year by having our water quality report that you just recently received. We want to monitor and prepare for all future regulatory requirements, which we do through interaction with the different regulatory authorities. And one example of that was the construction of the Thomas Road Groundwater Treatment Facility, where we actually implemented technology, our reverse osmosis technology, that handles a wide spectrum of contaminants, and it can take out others that are not currently regulated. And so by doing that, we can stay ahead of the regulatory requirements. Customer satisfaction, ensure timely and accurate billing statements. Currently, year to date, we've had 544 billing errors on our billing of over 1 million bills. Half of those 544s were created by the wrong customer name, and that's the error that we get. And that's created when people move out of homes and apartments and don't tell us that they've moved out of homes and apartment, and we send them a bill in the name of the previous customer. So of the 544, 282 were those type of errors. So if you look at that, that ends up being 2.5 billing errors per 10,000 bills. That is in the upper quartile of all water utilities in the country. We want to respond to after-hour emergency calls in less than 90 minutes. 5 years ago when we did this was less than 2 hours. We have now refined that to less than 90 minutes. And these are the ones in the middle of the night when we have guys on call and they have to get up, put their uniform on, drive in, grab their truck, and then respond to the site. Scottsdale's a long city. It can take a while to get out there. 90 minutes is our standard. Employee leadership and development. We want to attract, hire, and retain the best class of employees. And to do that, we've implemented several different programs in place. One is called Skill Bridge, and we've pioneered this with the city and basically the valley. The Skill Bridge is a program the Department of Defense offers for service members getting out of the service for their last 6 months. The department, if those folks apply through the Department of Defense, they are tagged and we can get them working for us for 6 months under funding from the Department of Defense. We use that program. We currently have 2 Skill Bridge, I guess I call them employees, technically they're still service members, working with us. One as an operator, the other as an instrumentation and control tech. We have one Skill Bridge person who was in the program who's now an employee of ours that is a SCADA technician. That's a supervisory control and data acquisitions. That's our IT specialist internal to water. So we have one of those. So that's been a successful program we continue to want to leverage. We also started 10 years ago with our apprentice program. And so we started with 2 apprentices, and that was to kind of raise up our own folks in the water industry, in the operator rank. Started with operators, water and wastewater operators. We wanted to go out and get high school grads. We don't need college grads. We need high school grads that we can educate and get certifications. So we started with that program with 2, one in water, one in wastewater, 10 years ago. We now have 6 of those. So we have 4 of them in either water or wastewater, and then we have an instrumentation control position and a SCADA control position as well. And so we have 6 apprentice openings, and we continue to try to push those up through our system. We do lose occasionally some. We educate them and they go to other places in the valley. We know that's going to happen. That's okay. Other cities value these employees as well. But I will say, I thank council for the class and comp and passing that. That was critical for us. All of those areas all of the service areas, the distribution crews that you saw, the operators, the maintenance technicians, and our electricians, all of those received a raise as their pay category raised up to keep them competitive. That's important. We don't have a lot of those folks that actually live in Scottsdale. They commute into Scottsdale. It's important to be competitive. So thank you, council, for that. We require a minimum of 24 hours of annual training and professional development for each employee. We want them to stay on top of their skills. Financial viability, we want to retain a balanced budget and proactively managing our operating expenses. My directors who you see sitting in the audience know that we get together on a quarterly basis, and with the managers, we review our operating budgets. We look them over, we assess them. They have to answer to why they're over in a particular area, and we proactively manage our budget. We also look for our performance measures at that same time, and I know they take that and further meet monthly with their direct reports. We try to stay as engaged as possible in our operating expenses and utilizing a strategy of incremental rate increases to meet long-term revenue requirements. We've done this for a number of years, trying to avoid large rate increases. Enterprise resiliency. So provide an active emergency management program. We do that. We actually operate our own internal EOC. Kevin Rose, who was up here earlier, staffs that and mans that, and we do exercises annually. Some of those are tabletop, some of those are full-out exercises where we have crews running to mock emergencies to ensure our staff is ready. We want to reduce our carbon footprint and increase our power source redundancy through increased utilization of alternative energies. On the carbon footprint, Gretchen mentioned the SRP biomass initiative. So not only does that take care of the forest by removing biomass, what SRP does with that is they use that biomass and they generate power from that. By generating power from that, you would think, well, that's pretty heavy carbon footprint, but it's nowhere near the carbon footprint that a forest fire creates. And so by doing that, we actually receive carbon credits from SRP for reducing carbon emissions. Because it took me a while to work through this, but if you think about it and what a forest fire does and how much pollution that creates, burning that to create electricity through pollution control methods is much less than a forest fire. And infrastructure strategy and performance, we update our integrated water resource master plan every 5 years. We did that several years ago. I know council was very involved with that. We develop and maintain an asset management system that maximizes the life cycle and the value of our capital assets. Water resource sustainability, we want to manage an assured water supply that's required by the state of Arizona. We want to cultivate a proactive and innovative conservation program, and Gretchen talked about that. We want operational optimization. We want to minimize cybersecurity. We've worked actively over the last several years with the Arizona Department of Emergency Management and had them try to attack our system and hack into our system. And we've been very successful about keeping them out, but also learning of any potential vulnerabilities. So we are very proactive with that. We work proactively with the IT department as well. And we want to maintain non-revenue water below 7%. The state standard is 10. We're not satisfied with that. We are going to push that down, and we have been successfully pushing that down into the 6s. I try to push it down lower, but as Kevin knows, it's hard, but we continue to push for better and better. Stakeholder understanding and support. We activated our Citizens Water Academy. That actually came through the EUM process to look how we could engage our customers more. We're going to do that at least once per year. Generally, we do it twice per year, but our standard will be once per year. Champion an active presence in local and regional and national water advocacy organization. This helps us address issues from the regulatory standpoint as a larger group than just Scottsdale Water. So AMWA is one of those groups that we stay engaged with. So we have more say in issues than just Scottsdale. We want to maintain a municipal utility assistance program. We started that in COVID, and we've kept that going to this day. Through this year, we've provided over $7,500 in assistance to Scottsdale customers who legitimately couldn't pay their bills, and we have provided that money and assistance to them. It's been over 50 customers and $7,500 to provide them with that bridge in making their payments. And it also helps us not turn off customers by providing that assistance as well. So our strategic initiatives, those are our standards. The first one is implement advanced purified recycled water by 2027. You heard Gretchen talk about the need for water and the size of the magnitude of the cut we expect to get. This we can do by 2027 and helps us address that immediate need when it occurs. We have the technology. We have it. It's leveraging what we already have. We need to increase our system-wide recovery capabilities, so we need to increase our well field. And so we are proposing to increase our well field by 5 million gallons per day by 2025. It's important to be able to continue to pull from that bank account that I know Gretchen's referred to in other presentations that we have stored over many years. So we have our ASR wells that have added 15 million gallons a day capacity. We want to continue to add more. We want to fully implement our automated meter infrastructure technology. Now, we started this with our last master plan, and we updated all our meters. They all have that technology. What we don't have is the antenna systems and the ways to get that information back to all of our customers. Currently, about 55% of our customers can get near real-time information about their account to see when leaks occur, to see when their high usage occurs. They can put in for leak alerts that they can get in a near real-time basis to say, hey, you got a leak. We believe that's important for conservation efforts to do that, but we need to expand that over the next 5 years to get the antennas up, and then in some of the areas, because of topography, we're going to have to go cellular. So we're going to have to reach into another phase and go cellular with some of this, which we can do. We have the technology out there, but we need to continue to push forward to get 100% of our customers with that availability to understand what their water use is. The number 4 is to pursue additional water resources and wastewater volumes that can be reclaimed and reused. So one of those is Bartlett Dam. We can get water through our cooperation with Bartlett Dam and the raising of Bartlett Dam. We want to pursue that. Council's already approved our initial funding in that as far as just the investigation part of that. We also want to look at City of Phoenix, and they're doing their own advanced potable water, advanced purified recycled water. They're doing their own direct potable reuse project. And we want to look at that because we can get our SHROG flows back to us through that project. And we want want to expand our capacity to move water north from the SRP area, service area. So we're going to get water. We currently have some water that's in Roosevelt. It's called, it's new conservation space. We invested in the 90s for the raising of Roosevelt Dam. And with that, we have some storage in Roosevelt Dam. We only get it when it fills all the way up, so we need good years, and then we get it. And it's over 20,000 acre feet when it fills all the way up. 26, there I stand corrected, 26,000 acre feet when it fills all the way up. But it doesn't always fill up all the way. But we need the ability to move that north. With Bartlett Dam, we'll need even more to move north to supplement our CAP supplies. So how does that all fit together as we talk about our loss of water from the CAP? This slide kind of puts it together there. So you can see through our own APRW project, we estimate we can get 5,000 acre feet out of that. That's now. We'll get more as flows increase over time, but right now it's around 5,000 acre feet. Bartlett Dam, another 5,000 acre feet on average. Now, they'll give us a larger allocation. We estimate that to be around 19,000 acre feet total space. But if you do it on an annual average and you look what runoff would be and how much it would make, it's about 5,000 acre feet. Then you look at the Harklahela INA. That's where we have a well field out in the Harklahela Valley to pump groundwater, put it in the CAP canal, and bring it to us. There's about 3,900 acre feet of water there. We need to get the Bureau of Reclamation to approve a wheeling so that we can then bring that water to us. We have 3 wells drilled. They need to be equipped and put in, and then a pipeline put into the canal. We can do that by 2027. And the Phoenix APRW will bring us around 6,000 acre feet of water available. So you can see, if we're looking at 20,000 acre feet of cuts, we can make that up through these 4 initiatives. We can get that water on board. The problem is timing. So initially, the only 2 that we can get by 2027 are the Scottsdale APRW and the Harklahela INA. That's about 9,000 acre feet of water. Good news is we don't use all of our CAP allocation right now. So we have some that we've been storing behind Lake Mead. So we have around 9,000 or 10,000 acre feet of water we don't currently use. So we have that buffer that can lead to give us the time to reach the other 2 alternatives, which are the Bartlett Dam expansion and the Phoenix APRW project. So that's the timing and the importance of the strategic plan, why we need these initiatives, why we need this infrastructure to come forward. And I did tell Gretchen I would answer a question that Councilwoman Whitehead had about the new regulations on direct potable reuse. Those are expected to be in the fall. I was told about 2 weeks ago they'd be out in 4 weeks. However, I feel it's more like a repairman who gives you 2 weeks. It'll be 2 weeks. So I think it's going to be a little longer than the 4 weeks they gave me, but it should be sometime this fall that they'll come out with that regulation.
Thank you, Brian. We'll go to Councilwoman Janik.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Brian. Very informative presentation as always. Could you give me an example of the non-revenue water that you're trying to get down to 7%? I'm curious.
Well, we get it down, we're under 7. We're at 6.5. Sometimes we get close to 6. The difficulty is in meters. So we have these meters out there, and there's meter inaccuracy, like anything, and that can be from 2 to 5%. So getting below 5 is impossible. But ways that we reduce our water losses, we just put what we call a no-des truck. We just brought that online. That's our hydrant flushing. So we used to go out there, and if we have a water quality issue or we just had some debris in the line, we'd go out there and open up the hydrant, flush that water out. We'd waste it, it'd go down into a storm drain. Now we have a truck that goes out there, takes that water, sends it through a big filter machine, sticks it back into the system at another hydrant. So that's one of the ways that we are trying to save and ensure that we keep all our water in the pipes and we don't waste water.
Okay. I have a specific question. If you don't want to answer it, we can talk later. But it has to do with ASM and the cooling tower. And they felt like they had a better
I think
design?
that's not really on the agenda, but I did get an answer for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Brian. I just, we're looking for an illustration that can help the public understand better, the goals and conservation. And I kind of refer again to that item 1 and 2 where we're powering to 2 wells. One's well 159 and the other well's 161, right?
Correct.
And they can be reversed, so they can either extract water or put water into the aquifer, correct?
Yes, Mayor, that is correct. That's important to note. As Gretchen put her little graph about modeling, there are some years where there's going to be water, and when we have that water, it's important to put that in the ground.
Well, also, when we take the purified water, the ultra-purified, we store it in the aquifer. So that means that we use energy to pump it down, right, into the aquifer?
That's
not
correct.
just gravity fed. Yet, we could have another pump a day later or 100 feet away from it, extracting water from that same aquifer if we needed that water extraction. So, and we would be, when we inject purified water, and then we blend it with whatever's down there, when we extract it, we have to clean it again, right?
We take that water back into our water treatment plant, to our CAP plant. Yes, we do.
Sure. So that's why we're looking for a loop that wouldn't, after it's purified, we don't have to store it. If we can loop it over into the, into the system, then we don't have to clean it twice. And that's an energy savings and a storage savings as well.
Yes, Mayor, it's correct. And we just can't poke enough straws into this aquifer to pull all that water out. It's just, we have put a number of wells there, but we cannot continue to just put these massive wells. We just don't have the space, nor can the aquifer take that amount of suction out of it over long periods of time. So we need to find a way to take that water directly, put it into our CAP water treatment facility, and then pump it out to folks.
So it's like having a little martini straw. You can't really extract what you need. You can add water into it, but when you need it, you just can't. You got to stir it a little bit and put an olive in it. But that's one illustration that I try to make directly because we have reverse osmosis, we have ozone, we have ultraviolet, we have all those rays, but then we have to store it until we get the clearance. So we expect to get clearance from Department of Interior and EPA as well. So once we get that, we don't have to clean it twice. There's a lot of expense with filtration, backwashing, and all that. So I think there's an economy there. The greatest economy would be with the direct, reuse, purified water reuse. Okay, Councilwoman Caputi, and we're nearly completed.
Thank you. I'm just really happy that we have a dedicated public information officer for the water department. I feel like we should have one for every single department. I don't really need to look at the graph that Stacy presented in the beginning to understand that a lot of our residents don't get this, because I spend a lot of my day, and I'm sure my colleagues do too, trying to dispel a lot of the myths out there about water. And so I would just encourage the water department to continue to make sure that our residents understand. It's a serious situation, and yet we've been prepping for decades. We have these amazing programs. They're very sophisticated, and again, we just can never do enough to get this information out into the community because it helps. So more information is better, and again, let's have an information officer for every department. I feel like we could be I'm constantly having to dispel myths in all of the different areas, transportation, water, whatever it might be. So let's make sure that people hear the good story and that they understand the correct facts, and that we tell our success story. Even about property taxes going down. That was fantastic, Sonia. I was going to ask you to repeat it. But anyway, again, these are great successes. Let's celebrate them, and let's keep moving forward with great information. So good job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I see no other questions or requests to speak. So with that, we are concluded with the work study items.
Thank you.
And how about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Please record your vote. Thank you. Unanimous, we are adjourned.